I remember this girl ended up looking at me straight in my eyes, and then she said to me into my ear, I brought a whip you can use. And at that moment, I was looking at her and thinking to myself, was my Tinder date really that crazy? Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to another really embarrassing, but I gotta say crazy story. This story all takes place, I want to say 1 year ago. So 1 year ago, I was living on my own, living in a nice apartment, and honestly, I was just telling stories like every other day, obviously for you guys to listen to. And I remember one day specifically, I got really bored, so what I decided to do was basically lay in bed and I started swiping through Tinder. If you guys don't know what Tinder is basically an app where you get to meet other women and basically kind of, I don't know, find a connection. For me, I usually used it though just to do the devil's tango. So as I'm in my bed laying down swiping through Tinder, out of nowhere I ended up seeing this girl on there that was actually pretty attractive. Obviously I ended up swiping right, and one thing led to another, it was a match. So right away I decided to DM her, you know, basically spit some riz, and honestly it didn't take that long for her to reply. She replies to me saying, hey, like, are you really like actually like a creator? Yeah, why? Oh, like, so like you like make videos and stuff? Basically, yeah. Oh my goodness, that's so cool. What kind of videos do you make? And I ended up sending her my channel link, and well, one thing led to another. Surprisingly, she's actually seen one of my videos before. I remember she instantly started messaging me saying, oh my goodness, like I've seen you before. Like you were like blowing up that 1 year. Oh my goodness, wait, are you actually like that active? Like, are you really the master of the devil's tango? And honestly, this wasn't the first time a girl's reacted like this towards me, and I'm not gonna lie, I always end up saying the same thing, where I would say, oh, I mean, well, that's for you to find out, to be honest. At that moment, she was instantly on board, and she basically kept telling me how she wanted to plan a day with me to hang out and come to my place to do the devil's tango. At that moment, I was kind of surprised, but at the same time, I really just did not care. But it felt really weird to me how she didn't even want a first date. She just wanted to get straight into it. I remember me and her, we started to exchange numbers, and well, we decided to actually meet up one day. And let's just say when that day came around, I realized that I probably did a massive mistake, because I remember 3 days came around and basically she ended up coming over. But before she came over, she ended up texting me over and over the past 3 days about what types of stuff we were gonna do. I basically told her like, oh, the only thing we're gonna do is I guess do the devil's tango. And she was really on board, but she wanted to know specific details. Now me, I like to keep things sweet and simple. Like I'm a, you know, gentleman at the end of the day. So I didn't want to really get into details about things because that's kind of weird to do over the phone as well. But this girl was always telling me all the crazy things she wanted to do, and I knew that she was ultimately a freak. But how much of a freak? Well, I remember that day came around and she ended up actually like, you know, pulling up to my place, and I came downstairs from my apartment. When I went to the front of the building, I saw her there. We hugged, we shook hands, which was really awkward to be honest. And then she ended up coming upstairs. When she came upstairs, I remember she was really fascinated by the creator awards I had, and on top of that, she found it really cool how I had a really giant gaming setup, which to be fair, if you guys ever seen my gaming setup before, it's really the eye catcher of basically every apartment I ever lived in. But right away, what this girl decides to do was she sits down on the couch that was behind my setup, and she instantly sits down and says, so are we gonna do it here, like in front of the camera? Wait, what? I'm joking, silly. I mean, obviously. At that moment, I'm not gonna lie, that was like a real gold digger comment to make. Like it was just really out of pocket, but at the same time, I decided to just ignore it and move on. I remember as me and her were sitting down talking about certain things, she ended up basically looking at me and she asked me, oh, so I'm just wondering, where's the bathroom? Oh, the bathroom? Here, I'll show you where it is. And when me and her got off the couch, she ended up bringing her bag with her, or her purse, I should say, towards the bathroom with us. And when she walked into the bathroom, the first thing I noticed that she did was that she ended up basically opening her purse, grabbing her toothbrush that she brought for some reason, and she put it inside the cup that also had my toothbrush in it. Now that moment, I was like, wait a second, does this girl plan to stay the night? Like, what is she doing? Because obviously that was really, really weird. So I asked her and I said, so I'm just wondering, why'd you bring your toothbrush? Oh, I brought it just in case, like, I need to, like, you know, brush my teeth, you know, nothing crazy, don't worry. Okay. And then afterwards, I ended up basically going back to the couch and sitting down. When I sat down and wait for her to use the bathroom, I ended up just kind of thinking, was it really worth it for this girl to come over and know where I live? But at the same time, I didn't really care. But I remember when she came out of the bathroom, she ends up walking up to me and she says, okay, I'm all ready for this now. And right away, she ends up literally jumping onto me and starts making out with me. It was really all of a sudden, honestly, I did not expect this whatsoever. But here's where things got ultimately insane. Because right when I say, so do you want to actually like head into the bedroom? She ends up looking at me and she says, oh, I mean, yeah, we can, but real quick, can I go back to my car? I think I forgot something. You forgot something in your car? Yeah, is it cool if I bring it up? Like, trust me, you won't won't regret it. At that moment, I looked at her kind of oddly, but then I said, sure. And me and her, we ended up going downstairs outside back to her car where she parked originally. And then she opened the trunk of her car and pulled out this suitcase. And that's when I really got worried. I ended up looking at her saying, wait, why'd you bring your suitcase? Oh, trust me, when we get inside, you'll see why. And at that moment, we ended up bringing this girl's suitcase all the way back up to my apartment. And when she lays it out on the couch and opens it, I ended up seeing a bunch of toys and certain things that are used during the Devil's Tango. And that's when I started to freak out. I started to freak out saying, wait, you brought all this in a suitcase? Wait, for what? Well, obviously, like, I've seen your videos. I want to know if, like, you'll, like, go crazy on me like you do with those other girls in your stories. At that moment, I knew this girl was not only from Tinder, but she was crazy. And I was starting to worry, and I basically sat down beside her on the couch as she was pulling things out. And this is the part where I basically drew the line, because this was, like, where things got way too far. Because I remember she ends up pulling out this whip. And I'm not gonna lie, it was like a childish whip. Like, it wasn't actually like anything serious, like no Indiana Jones whip, but it was a basic whip. And I remember she looks at me and she comes, leans into my ear and says, I really want you to hurt me, daddy. Wait, what? At that moment, I stood up and I looked at her and said, okay, whoa, you're taking this way too far. Like, listen, like, I get it. Like, I'm the master of the Devil's Tango, but like, you're taking things to extreme limits. Well, what do you mean? Like, don't you like it though? Yeah, I do, but I'm not gonna lie, like, this is a bit much, don't you think? At that moment, I remember she ends up grabbing all the things she placed on the floor, all her Devil's Tango toys, and she basically starts putting it into her suitcase again, really upset. And she looks at me and says, you know what? I think I'm gonna go home now. Oh, come on, don't be like that, is what I told her. But then she was very persistent on just wanting to go home, which I said fair enough. I remember she ends up leaving my place, and one thing led to another. I remember 2 hours later, I ended up seeing a comment on one of my videos, this long paragraph about how I was basically not real and how my stories are fake and how basically I am not the freak that I am. Now, it's normal for me to get comments like this, but to be honest, knowing that it was from her because her actual name was her account, I was just laughing for a good long while because I knew this chick was ultimately crazy. And actually, to this day, the comment is still up. It's still on one of the videos on this channel. I'm not gonna say which one. That's for you guys to find out. But if you do find it, comment down below. And other than that, why don't you just fall for more embarrassing stories just like this one? Peace out, guys. Okay, so before I start the story, I just want to say, I think that my opinion really matters towards the story because I know a lot of people are like, oh, dating apps, like that's so weird. Ew, no, you'll never find love in dating apps. And I'm going to be brutally honest, a lot of relationships nowadays, I think revolve around them. Like, let's be honest here, no matter what age you are, from literal middle school to high school to like after 20s, there's always like a dating app for you. And like, I know like Tinder's like the most commonly known one. I get that. But realistically saying, I think we all know there's like a million dating apps in this world that go out and get like, you know, something. But this story revolves around me using a dating app. I'm not going to say which one, but I think it's pretty typical which one I can use. So let's get straight into this. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba and welcome back to another crazy story. So today's story is obviously about me using a dating app and how much I just had the worst experience ever with it. And I think a lot of people do have bad experiences with dating apps, and this is how mine went. So obviously, you know, one day I was on my phone, you know, just going through stuff and hanging out, and I kept seeing messages come up on my Snapchat group chat. If you guys don't know, I had a Snapchat group chat with a bunch of my friends. They were literally just homies, and they would always, like, you know, send photos in. And of course, one of my friends, the horn dog he kept sending photos about chicks from this dating app, and he kept sending a bunch like back to back, and he was always saying like roasting these girls on how much they wanted him stuff. Now you can literally just fake a whole entire persona on this dating app. Now me, obviously, you know, the guy I was back then, I was a horn dog, and I really actually wanted to try this out and see what was going on and see if I can even get some, because you know, most dating apps, you know, revolve around your local area or where you're from. Like, they try to capture women, or in other cases men, women, whatever you prefer, around your area. So obviously me, I went on that app and I started downloading it. I put some nice photos of me in there, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna slay, I'm gonna go do the Devil's Tango. But at the same time, obviously I had to like kind of be mature about it, because you know, I didn't want to, you know, it's just weird in a sense to, you know, go on a dating app and be like, I'm gonna get some, you know, it's not that simple. So obviously me swiping my fingers crazy all the time. Like, I remember literally I was in class one time, like during science, and I was just doing it back to back, and it got to a point where it's just, you know, know, it got addicting to swipe. Like, it was more addicting than Candy Crush. And I think Candy Crush was like what, known to literally be like a mind game. But I kept going and stuff. And then I remember, I want to say a week after, straight up, some chick just started messaging me. And yes, I did get DMs before that, you know, of like other women trying to hit me up. But let's be real here, none of them were like, no, it. But then I got this DM from this one girl. And this one girl actually seemed pretty outstanding. Like, she was genuine. She was nice. Her photos looked really good. Like, I don't know. I kind of just like, you know, I was like, screw it, you know, like, why not? So I added her on my Snapchat because, you know, I don't think, you know, talking to her through Tinder was like really a common thing. I don't know. I know most people do it, but I don't personally. I'd rather take them to an actual app where I can talk to them. Anyways, we're snapping back and forth and we were just talking about life and we were talking about, you know, everything. And I realized that this chick actually lived near me. Funny enough, she actually lived like literally a block away from me. And at that point, I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I mean, like, you know, she's always there. Like, I could literally just go see her right now. So what do I decide to do? Well, you see, there was one or two options I could have done in this moment. I could have stayed at home playing video games all day. The other thing I could do is obviously go to this chick's house and do the devil's tango, which was a pretty smart option in my opinion. But one thing I should say before, you know, I say what happens when I went to the chick's house, I just want to mention that she invited me over, okay? And even though, you know, one thing I should advise, since I am, you know, a YouTuber and stuff and I have to advise proper things, stranger danger is actually like a real thing. And I know a lot of people like, you know, go out and say like, oh, I'm so charismatic, I can talk to anybody and they'll love me. Like, no, there are actual strangers out there that will, you know, hurt you in the long run. You never know who. So I advise, just if you are going on these dating apps, you know, be smart about who you are and what you're going to do and what information you're going to give out. Don't do what I did and straight up just said, oh, I live a block away from you. Huh, sweet. You know, because you never know who's actually a block away from you. Anyway, so like I was saying, this chick did invite me over and she wanted me to come over and hang out with her. Now, at first I was a little skeptical about it because obviously I wanted to stay home and play video games. But obviously, knowing me and the horn dog I was actually interested in going. So obviously I got my things, I dipped, and I went straight to her house, which was literally a block away. So, you know, even though I still drove, just to flex the car, the Silica, I love this thing to death, I didn't really need to. I don't know. It was just weird. But I went in there and I knocked on her door. When I knocked on her door, I realized an old lady opened the door. And before you guys say anything, no, it's not a catfish story, but at the same time, it kind of was, but you'll see why. But an old lady opened the door and she's like, oh, are you here for my granddaughter? Now, this is where things got really skeptical because I didn't expect anyone to be home. At least that's what she told me through texts, but oh well. So I went inside and obviously I was like, yeah, like, you know, I'm here to see, like, you know, your granddaughter. Yeah. Woo, cool. Granddaughter gang. And then I went inside. When I went inside, she told me that she was in her room, but I had to wait in the living room. So I remember she literally just came outside, came to the living room, and just sat down. Now, the funny thing is that the more I looked at her, the more different she actually looked compared to the photos on the dating app I saw her in. So I remember I kept looking at her and I realized like, this girl just looks weird. Guys, here's some hardcore science and anyone can explain this to anyone. I don't know. This is just science I have in my personal life. So consider it Bubba science. The more you look at a chick, it can go one or two ways. One, it could look really, really good and just look cuter by the minute you look at her. Or she could look just straight out, flat out ugly the more you look at her. And you're just going to get sick of it over time. And with this chick, it was that I just couldn't look at her. I just was tired of it. I don't know. Like, I sound like a really rude person because I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the most attractive person either. Okay, I'll give you that. Okay, for all the ladies listening saying, oh, this guy is just so straight rude. But at the same time, I'm gonna be honest, the more I looked at her, I just wasn't, you know, attracted. So I remember I was literally stuck in his house with a chick I wasn't even attracted to, in a way somewhat catfish, her grandmother right behind me offering me tea, and I'm just sitting there and we're just being straight out weird. So I was sitting down, she was like, you know, kind of coming close to me and stuff, and then she was like telling me all these cool things about her life and stuff, and then she pulled out her rock collection. That's right, she literally collected rocks. I don't know why. And I remember, you know, as like I was looking at her, she had like a tattoo like kind of on the side of her neck, and it was like of a circle thingy. I don't know, but apparently it's a rock. I don't know, she was like addicted to rocks, and it was just straight out weird. I can't explain it in any other way other than this chick had a rock collection. She was not the same, like, you know, she looked on the dating app, and also her grandmother was still behind me. I don't know, it was weird. So I remember I really wanted to get out of the situation and stuff. So I remember, you know, I was just on my phone, you know, like, oh, that's cool, you know, rocks, yeah, you know, just still on my phone, just looking at stuff. But then something really weird happened. So she started like kind of like coming near me, and like she had her rock in like one of her hands, and like she kind of like started like, how do I explain it? She started putting her rock on my thigh in a way. And this is where things get awkward. I know you guys are thinking like, oh, he did the devil's tango with rocks. No, I did not. Okay, I literally not even joking. I kind of like leaned away, but then she kept leaning more, and then she ended up kissing me. Yes, we did kiss. I did kiss the rock lady, which is weird. And then after that, at that point, I was like, no, like I can't do this. So I remember it got got up and I said, where's your nearest bathroom? And I went to that bathroom. As I got there, I straight up like, sat on the toilet. Obviously I did have to pee, so I did do that. But otherwise, I was texting my friend saying, yo, you need to get me out of this situation like right now. He texted me back saying like, yo, what's up? And I'm like, your dumb dating app idea thingy of me getting a chick was the dumbest thing in the world. Like, I should never listen to you. In a way, I kind of went on a rant with him and telling him the situation I was in. He started laughing and told me like, like this is what you expect. You never actually go meet up with these chicks unless, you actually have that firm connection. You don't go after like the first week of talking to them, which is fair. I mean, I don't blame him. And then after that, I texted him saying like, yo, call me and just yell at me. Just straight up yell. I don't care what you yell, just yell. He said, okay. So I remember I went back out and then my phone starts ringing. As my phone starts ringing, she's like looking at me, the girl, and she's like, are you gonna pick that up? And I'm like, yep. I pick up the phone and I'm like, hello? And it's straight up, I'm not even joking. I don't know what he put on the phone, but straight up, it was just noise. Like, it was just straight up loud noise. And I just had to pretend with this loud noise that sounded like, here, wait, actually, what's a good example? It sounded like this. Something like that. Sorry if I blew out your eardrums. But anyways, that noise was going on. I had to like pretend to like kind of talk to it in a way, saying, okay, I'll do it. Like, I'll come home. So I got that phone call. I straight up, hung up the phone. I'm like, sorry, I gotta leave. And this chick was like totally understanding about it too. She was like, oh yeah, go for it. Like, it sounds really important, even though it was just straight up weird noise. And I went out there. I went in my car. I said, I'm never gonna talk to the crazy rock lady from the dating app again. And I went back home and played a video game because that's what I do best. Anyways, guys, that is it for the video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see all you guys in next story. And one thing led to another. I ended up finding her in the bathroom, and let's just say she looked like a totally different person. This person was literally the ultimate catfish. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to an insane story. So today's story all starts off my grade 10 year, and I remember in grade 10, I'm not gonna lie to you, I was a major player, meaning that I would always try to pull many different types of girls, and honestly, it got to a point in my grade 10 year where I was, well, talk of the town between all the girls in my school, and let's just say I had to go on a dry slate. What does that mean? Well, basically, a lot of the girls in my school didn't want to hit me up anymore or talk to me because they felt kind of gross that I was literally the ultimate F-boy. But honestly, at this point in time, I really didn't care that much because, why hate the player? Just hate the game. But at the same time, I didn't blame them. And I remember me thinking that nothing bad was going to happen. I remember one time I ended up going home and I decided to download this app called Tinder. If you guys don't know what Tinder is like the online dating app that most people go to if you're ultimately super single and lonely. There's so many different types of apps as well. Like there's Hinge, and there's so many different apps that you can try to hit up girls on. And honestly, it's not that easy as it seems. But I remember there was one time where I ended up just downloading Tinder for my first app online. And as I was downloading Tinder, I remember I ended up making my profile really good. I had a lot of good photos of me back when I was in high school. And honestly, a lot of people thought I was just naturally hot because of my amazing jawline that I had. Because for some reason back then, jawlines were such a big thing. And I remember literally the first day of me downloading Tinder, instantly at that moment, I want to say like a week went by and I ended up getting more than 100 people swiping right on me. Now, me knowing that I was getting a ton of different matches and stuff, I was really happy about this. But at the same time, I'm not gonna lie, a lot of these girls did not seem like who they were. And a lot of girls that I was talking to, well, none of them really just wanted to be friends with benefits. A lot of them wanted to have like serious relationships. But me, I was only in grade 10. So me getting into a serious relationship in my mind wasn't really a good idea. But I remember one time, I was laying in my bed and it was like 12 in the morning, and I remember it was super late at night, and I was just swiping through Tinder just for the fun of it because it became like a daily activity for me. And as I was swiping on Tinder, I remember I ended up basically finding a girl that honestly looked really good in her photos. Not gonna lie, I will say this, at the time I didn't notice how much makeup she was actually wearing, but when I actually like, saw her photos, she looked really good. So me thinking, you know what, she's hot, why not try talking to her? I ended up swiping right on her and we matched instantly, and me and her, we actually were really compatible. In a way, me and her, we were able to talk about a lot of different things together, and me and her, we had really good conversations about life and, just basic morals and stuff, and how we were both not looking for anything serious. So at this moment, I remember I decided to basically add her on another platform, which was my Snapchat, and one thing led to another. Me and her, we started talking even more. I remember though, when me and her were talking, there was many things that were like major red flags when I added her. Like, for example, she didn't have like a bit emoji, which is like the little icons that like Snap has to like, show what a person looks like. She didn't make one at all. And on top of that, her Snap score was super high, but at the same time, really sus. At this moment, I was thinking that this girl wasn't real, and I had many different suspicions because I actually got worried if this girl was actually her or not. But I remember as time went on, me and her would have different conversations, and I remember there was one time where she told me, oh, Bubba, like, you're so cute. And I remember she would say this so often because I would always send a photo of like my face on Snap because I was never scared to like just send a quick selfie to someone. But for her, well, it was totally different. I never got to compliment her back back or riz her up the way I would usually for a different girl because, well, she would never snap me a photo of her face whatsoever. She would only like send photos of when she was out with her friends and, you know, out in public. But when she was at home and me and her were just having normal late night conversations, she would never send me any photos of any type, like not even just a basic selfie. And that kind of made me concerned, but at the same time, I kind of get it. Maybe some people just aren't as comfortable sending selfies. I don't know. Comment down below if you guys like sending selfies. But for me, like, I would send a selfie no matter when, but for her, she would just never do it. So I found this odd, and I remember one time I decided to do this thing where I bugged her about it, saying, yo, like, do you like not send selfies? Like, are you just like scared of like, you know, yourself at home or something? Wait, what do you mean scared of myself at home? That makes no sense. Bubba, what are you on about? Oh, nothing. I'm just curious. Like, I never actually like, you know, seen you or met you yet. So I was just wondering, like, maybe want to like go out sometime. She ended up saying yes, and then I remember she actually ended up sending me a photo, but this photo was of her cherries, not of her face. So I mean, hey, at least there was something to look at. Not saying that's a good idea to send cherries through the internet, but you know, there was something I saw going on though. I remember me and her, we ended up planning a date literally the weekend of, and we ended up meeting up at a cafe. And when we got to this cafe, I remember when I walked in, I instantly saw her and she looked exactly like she did in the photos. So in a way, I was happy that I wasn't, you know, fully catfished, but at the same time, when I actually walked up to her and looked at her close up, I started noticing that this girl was wearing way too much makeup, to the point where the makeup was just more than a frosting on a cake. And that's crazy to me. Like, don't get me wrong, I understand that girls like to wear makeup because they like to make themselves feel better, but at the same time, wearing it to the point where you don't even recognize yourself, well, is that really making yourself feel better, or is that really just making up for how hideous you actually look? At this time, I didn't really notice it, but me and her, we ended up talking, and me, honestly, I was attracted to her because she did look good with that much makeup on. So me and her, we started talking more and more, and then one thing led to another. I remember she ends up mentioning, so I was just wondering, after this, do you want to maybe head back to your place? At this moment, I knew instantly what she was wanting to do, and that was obviously do the Devil's Tango. And me and her, we ended up basically like actually going to go see a movie before we actually went back to my place because I needed some time to, you know, let my parents leave the house. So I remember I ended up basically like hanging out with her throughout that whole day. And I remember it became like kind of like to the point where it was 10 o'clock at night because we went to catch a really late movie. And the whole time during the ride back home, I remember she was basically like really nervous about something, but I wasn't sure what. When we finally got to my place, I remember instantly me and her, we ended up going up to the bedroom and we ended up doing the Devil's Tango. But I am not joking when I say this. When we were doing it the whole time, she really wanted me to make sure I don't touch her at all in her face whatsoever. I found it really odd because, like, for example, if me and her were making out, she would basically push me off and not want me to do that, even though we were doing the Devil's Tango. So in a way, like, me and her, we had like no eye contact or no contact at all with each other's faces, and we ended up just doing it, you know, the way we were supposed to do it, I guess. I don't really know how else to explain the Devil's Tango, but you guys can leave that to your own imagination. Actually, don't. That's still really weird, but going on with the story, I remember me and her, we were doing it for like a decent 3 hours, and then me and her both passed out. It was super late at night and it was 12 at night, and me, I was just laying down sleeping until eventually I ended up hearing a noise coming from my hallway. Now when I heard this noise, I kind of got worried and suspicious of what was going on. So I remember I ended up standing up and actually started heading towards the hallway to see what was going on and who was out there. And when I walked out there, I remember I started looking around, and the more I walked around, the more I didn't see anything because it was really dark out. But then I ended up seeing the bathroom light on and the door closed shut, and that's when I knew that, oh, this girl's definitely just quickly using the bathroom. I remember I ended up knocking on it to check to make sure if she was okay, and I knocked on it saying, hey, is everything all right in there? Like, you okay? I'm good, don't worry about it. All right, well, just let me know if you need anything. Okay, yeah, just head back to bed. You should sleep right now. Okay. And that's what I did. I ended up going back to my bed. I ended up laying down, but I didn't actually get to pass out. I just pretended to sleep because, well, I don't know, I didn't want to make her feel uncomfortable or weirded out that I caught her using the bathroom, which at the same time doesn't really make sense to be weird about because everyone uses the bathroom, everyone poops and pees. But honestly, I didn't make it weird, and I ended up just basically staying in my room, and I ended up pretending to sleep. I remember like 20 minutes later though, she ended up coming back into my room, and she ended up laying down right beside me. And at this moment, I'm like, oh, okay, like cool, she's back in the bed now. I can actually, you know, make sure everything's okay and just pass out. But then the weirdest thing ended up happening, and I'm not joking when I say this. This was so odd to me because she ended up basically literally always throughout us sleeping, she would always face herself the other way. She would never put her face towards me or look at me whatsoever. She would always, like, basically her back was always turned towards me. And I found this really weird because, like, what if I want to go for round 2 of the Devil's Tango. Like, what is going on? And then that's when I started to realize that this girl was probably hiding something. Maybe a secret freckle. Maybe it was like, you know, a weird nose job that she had. Like, I don't know. This girl definitely was hiding something of the sort. But then I remember I decided to like get up and head towards the bathroom. So that's what I did. I got up, I went to go use the bathroom myself. And at that moment, when I came back from using the bathroom, literally 10 minutes later, guys, I ended up walking back into my room. I saw that she was not even there. She wasn't on my bed. She was gone. I was so nervous and I was so scared. And I remember I started walking around my house looking for her. And I remember it got to the point where I ended up going downstairs to my kitchen. And when I walked into my kitchen, I saw there was a girl with the most hideous face I've ever seen, grabbing a glass of water, and she had the light on. And I remember I looked at her saying, what in the world? And that's when I realized this girl was the ultimate catfish. Like, I am not joking. She went from looking really hot to looking like a beast. Like, I am not joking. Like, this is crazier than like the Beauty and the Beast transition. This is like the Beauty to a Beast transition. Like, it was so scary. And I remember I ended up looking at her with my eyes wide open, and she looked at me saying, what's wrong? And I remember she ended up turning her back towards me, and I said, I have a question. How much makeup do you actually wear? And she took serious offense to that. And I remember she ended up calling a cab instantly at that moment and driving back home. I remember I didn't really feel bad at all because, well, I'm not gonna lie to you, this girl was ultimately hideous. Like, I am not joking. For girls out there that wear makeup, you don't need to wear that much makeup. Look natural so us guys don't get fooled by how much you have to wear. And yeah, all I'm gonna say is that I ended up blocking her after that because obviously I didn't want to interact with her whatsoever after that whole weird situation. But all I'm gonna say is that, guys, if you guys want to make sure that you guys don't fall for a catfish like that girl was, just fall for more embarrassing stories. Peace out, guys.